Hello and welcome to the 2019 Ferris State Football National Signing Day Breakdown. I'm Rob Bentley, the voice of the Bulldogs, along with Sandy Golston, color commentator for Ferris State Football. And Sandy, an exceptional class again of recruits brought in by head coach Tony Annese and the Bulldogs, 33 signees here in the class of 2019.
Yeah, really a very good class. A lot of diversity in the class in terms of the types of players, a good balance between offense, defense, a player on special teams. And so really good balance, a lot of players from the state of Michigan, but also keeping in touch with those recruiting bases that we have outside of the state of Michigan in places like Florida, California. So really a balanced and talented football class that the Bulldogs have coming in.
Obviously, we mentioned Florida. The Bulldogs able to sign 5 kids from the Sunshine State, but still did not neglect their home turf here in West Michigan.
Yeah, they really worked West Michigan very hard. And, of course, Tony Annese really has a lot of great contacts in West Michigan as well as the rest of the coaching staff. And so they really worked hard, and they had to scramble a little bit because of the extended season playing in the national championship game. And so kind of limited a little bit their recruiting opportunities, but they were still able to get out, hit the recruiting trail really hard, and get a lot of great work done on the back half of the month of December and then through the month of January. And so great work by the coaching staff to really work those recruiting bases, particularly in West Michigan, and then branching out across the state of Michigan and then outside of the state of Michigan to some of their other bases.
Some of the other places in Michigan, obviously the Detroit area, a big one for the Bulldogs under head coach Tony Annese here now in his 8th recruiting class, and a nice mix in the number of schools from the Detroit area that the Bulldogs were able to draw from.
Yeah, it really is great, and Detroit has been such a great area, not only for basketball over the years, and we've gotten some great basketball recruits over the years, but we've also got a number of great football recruits over the years, and some of the really good powerhouses in the Detroit area, not only in the city but also in the suburbs as well. And so really great to see Coach get some of those guys, and those are guys that he felt really good about as he talked about it in the signing day press conference. He really mentioned a number of those names and some of the recruiting contacts that they have, and some of these players that have a lot of versatile skills, very athletic class of guys that are going to be able to come in and contribute when their time is right.
You hit it on it right there. A common theme here with this year's class, the athleticism, the speed that the Bulldogs were able to draw in, a number of guys that could play multiple positions.
Yeah, and, we talked about that. I actually asked him that question during the press conference because, we talked about guys that play multiple sports, and you see more and more people saying, hey, if you play multiple sports, it really helps you to be better even at the main sport that you're good at. And so you look at the recruiting class that the Bulldogs have, a number of guys that not only played multiple sports but were excelling in multiple sports. And so I think that's something that's really going to pay off for them. They're also guys that have been winning, and so you really like to have not only that versatility, that athleticism, but also a winning attitude coming to Ferris.
We talk about establishing connections, establishing recruiting bases. The Bulldogs have been able to do that not only in Michigan but also in Florida. As we've seen over the years, guys like Devontae Harrington, Antonio Eggers, so many guys that the Bulldogs have brought in, have had success here, and certainly that carries over with this year's class.
Well, it's one of those things you look at, obviously, first, what did we get from Michigan, and did we protect our recruiting bases in Michigan, and we did that. And then when you're a Ferris fan, you start to say, well, okay, how many did we get from Florida? And that was one of the first things I looked at, and we got a number of players from the state of Florida and from some really strong programs in Florida as well. So it really continues that pipeline of, you mentioned some of the names that we've had over the years of guys from the state of Florida who have come in and done some great things for the program. And so that pipeline to Florida continues as the Bulldogs were able to solidify that base again and bring in some talented players that are going to contribute to this program in years to come.
Obviously, as Coach Annese referred to during his press conference, that exposure on national TV during that historic run this past fall certainly didn't hurt the Bulldogs.
You talk about some of the opportunities that they lost in terms of actually hitting the recruiting trail, but then you balance that against playing on national TV, playing on the big stage of Division II, playing in the national championship game. And so I think it gave the Bulldogs some great exposure, and it prompted some of those top-level recruits that the Bulldogs were looking at and say, well, you know what, maybe I want to wait. I don't want to sign too quickly because I may have a chance to play for Ferris. I may have a chance to play at the highest levels of not only the GLIAC but also the region and Division II. And so I think some of those recruits that waited, that were patient, and took an opportunity to really take a look at Ferris and give Coach Annese and his staff an opportunity to pitch Ferris to them, I think they're going to be happy, and I think Ferris is going to be happy.
Obviously, another big common theme with these recruits that the Bulldogs were able to bring in, a lot of all-state players, but a lot of teams that led their teams to the state playoffs.
Absolutely, and you really want players that come in with winning attitudes, that players that have been in winning programs. And because when you come to Ferris, the expectation is high. The expectation is to win. It's to compete for the GLIAC championship. It's to be the best in the region, and it's to compete for a national championship. And so when you have players that have been able to win conferences, when you have players that have been state champions, either in football and or other sports, it really speaks to the kind of attitude that you want in your program, because we have players in our program that are accustomed to winning. And so when they graduate, when they move on, they want to know with confidence that they've handed it over to players that also have that winning attitude. And so I think that was an important emphasis in the recruiting class for the coaches.
Certainly a class that comes in on the heels of some other great classes the Bulldogs have been able to bring in and really develops the depth in the program.
It does, and you can't take a year off, so to speak. When you're able to have a successful program, it's because you're able to get good recruiting class after good recruiting class after good recruiting class. And so when you look up and down your roster and you say, whoa, we got talented, fifth-year seniors. We got talented four-year seniors. We got talented juniors, sophomores, freshmen that are going to be really good. And that's what the Bulldogs have right now. So they feel like if they can continue to add pieces to the puzzle each year, then the program will be on solid ground. And so you don't have to say, oh, man, we're losing a big class, because we lost some great players, but we also have some great players coming up. And I think we've seen that in recent years with the Bulldogs, that even though they've lost some talented players, Tavier Thomas, Zach Sealer, Jason Vanderline, Justin Zimmer, Jake Lampman, so many others, they continue to reload with great players. And those guys that were in the program that helped build it, they feel good about the program being in good hands.
The Bulldogs, obviously this year, a class that maybe is a little larger than they've had over the past few years. Got a lot of guys from West Michigan, as we mentioned, Rockford, but one that certainly will draw some attention to Bulldog fans, getting a kid out of Allendale.
That's always a good one. You want to recruit certainly West Michigan very hard, and every once in a while you might look down there and you see a recruit from the hometown of one of your rival schools, and you get a chance to scoop up a guy that's going to be a contributor for you. You can't pass that up, and so that's probably a sweet one for the Bulldogs. But I think it's really sweet for Coach Anise to get players out of West Michigan in general, because West Michigan is so important to Coach Anise and his coaching history in West Michigan, and so it really means a lot to him and to the staff, and so that feels really sweet, I'm sure.
Certainly a class that'll come in and add to the expectations that the Bulldogs have, and already looking forward to another great 2019 season.
Oh, yeah. I tell you what, I'm excited about the spring. I mean, it doesn't really look like it's so much outside today, but it's going to be exciting to get to the spring, to see the players that are in the program right now. But you're right, once the weather warms up and you start to get into June, July, and in August, and the guys start to come into campus and they start to get ready for the season opener, the excitement is certainly going to build, and really looking forward to seeing some of these young guys work their way into the program, and then they can be the next J. Rue Campbell, the next Jason Vanderline, the Jake Lampman, Justin Zimmer. And so those guys you might have heard from today, they're going to be the next stars in this program.
For Sandy Golston, I'm Rob Bentley, and this has been the Ferris State Football National Signing Day Breakdown. For complete coverage, you can visit ferrisstatebulldogs.com.